Good morning, true crime friends. How y'all doing? Listen, the state of South Carolina versus Meagan Jackson. Ooh, this case is truly something to behold. You know we're going to get into it. But first, you know what you need to do? Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share these ridiculous videos out to your friends. That helps other people find us. So look, down there in South Carolina, right? The state, the solicitor's office, brought in like a bunch of medical people and a bunch of police people, and they were like, we tracked the phones and we had a license plate reader, and the crime went down the same way the state said it went down. I'm speeding through those witnesses because we need to get to that good, because you know I always have the good just for you. Okay. So, according to the medical examiner, Greg Rice, may he rest, was pew-pewed up 5 times by an unknown subject. You know who did it, and I know who did it. Anyway, so he was pew-pewed up 5 times, and that's really all they could tell from the autopsy. He was very, very, very dead, right? And so then the state of South Carolina calls Erica Dontell to the stand. Now listen, Erica is the wife of Chris Dantel, the assistant murderer, right? So Erica takes the stand. Y'all, the sweetest little lady you have ever seen in your life. She has her little glasses. She has like a cute haircut. She seems like your next door neighbor, somebody you know's mom or your girlfriend. She just seems like good, like kind-hearted people, right? She's a 4th grade teacher. And I was like, oh, sweet Polly purebred, where do we find this lady? She is adorable. I love her. And so the solicitor was like, hello, Miss Dontell. How you doing, girl? I mean, you know, in like judicial language. And she was like, I'm okay. And they were like, okay, say your name. She says her name, who she is. She's Chris Dontell's wife, and she's a 4th grade teacher. And the state says, how long have you been married? Y'all, the day she testified was her 10-year anniversary to her husband, who's in prison. Could you imagine? Also, he's still her husband. Girl, you ain't dump him. But she's real nice. You can tell just from looking at her face, she's real nice. So she tells her story, right? She's living in the house with her husband, Chris. Her husband has like a cleaning business, right? They go out and they clean like gas stations and public places and things like that. Also, in his spare time, he Uber drives for the dead. You know, he's like a dead body mover. And so then the pandy happened and money was tight because he couldn't continue cleaning gas stations. Were gas stations dirty during the pandemic? I don't even know, because, you know, I wasn't going into any. Anyway, so she was like, money was tight during the pandemic. And you know how families and groups of friends will become like a pod? Like you just saw these certain people all the time. Oh, I miss my pod. Oh, we had so much fun. I mean, I still see them, but just not as often as I did during the pandy. So the Dontell family became friends with Meagan Jackson, who was a neighbor at the time, right? And Meagan's kids. They were in each other's pod. And I was like, oh my God, they were friends. It's so lovely. I mean, not now that we know what happened. Anyway, so Erica goes on to tell us, she thought that Meagan was her friend then. Not now, though. Definitely not now. And so she explains, you know, through questioning with the solicitor, Meagan infiltrated their life, their entire life, their finances, their work, their money, everything. And then Erica starts getting these texts that are like, these anonymous texts are like, hey girl, hey, your husband's having an affair. And she was just like, what? She was shocked in the look. Erica may be sweet Polly purebred, but she don't have time for your mess either. She was like, Christopher, you know, she called him by his full name. Christopher, text this heifer, because first the text said her husband was having an affair, and then said, oh, your husband's having an affair with that lady that's supposed to be your good friend. So she was like, call that heifer right now. Call her. You know, she went straight exorcist on his behind, and Chris was like, humming. Okay, hello, hi, tell my wife that we're not having an affair, we're just friends. And so Erica calmed down. She was like, okay, I don't know why people would send me these messages or whatever, but okay, cool. I'm still nervous. Meanwhile, Meagan, the unfortunate unaliver, was like, ooh, I need to ramp this up. Now, first of all, Meagan was saying, that's my baby daddy that's sending you those texts. He's jealous. He's upset anytime anybody talks to me or whatever. So if I make friends with somebody, he causes trouble. And Erica was just like, Okay, this seems super duper sus to me, but I'm gonna go with it. Meanwhile, Megan is like, I know money is tight for y'all. I went to Costco and I bought an entire case of chicken nuggets. Instead of just giving her like one of the bags of chicken nuggets out of the case, she was like, no, here's some chicken nuggets for y'all too. You want some chicken bakes? You want some French fries? She was sharing all of her Costco food. And because money was tight over at the Dontell household, they were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Honey, Megan's out here giving gifts. Now look, call me suspicious, but I would have been like, why does Heifer bringing food to my house? She don't even know me like that. And now I'm hearing rumors she's having an affair with my husband. No, 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 no. I would keep them gifts and food, though. I'm not going to lie, because, you know, free food is still free food. Anyway, so Erica explains that she thought Megan was her friend. Yes, she got the text that said they were having an affair. Then she got a text that said, oh, girl, your husband got somebody pregnant. An anonymous text. And she was just like, what? Of course, Chris did what you would do in that situation, lie his whole face off. He was like, oh, no, I don't know why anybody would say that about me and my good friend and coworker that I spend long nights with and long days. And I'm in her truck with her all the time, doing nasty things in the place where we lay the dead bodies. But we're not going to go through all of that. And so Erica, you know, I believe Erica was keeping a close eye on the situation, but what's she gonna do? Her husband has to support the family. She got to take care of the kid. Like, everybody is just trying to live their life because it's the pandy, right? So Erica gets up there, sweet, sweet Erica gets up there and tells her very sad story of betrayal and heartbreak at the hands of her very terrible husband, right? So the defense gets up, and I was like, defense, if you harm one hair on this precious lady's head, I'm gonna be real mad about it. It's not like I'm gonna do nothing. I'm not going to South Carolina. Anyway. So the defense gets up there and they're real gentle with her, right? And I was like, okay. The defense is demonstrating some common decency when it comes to this nice lady. And so she said, they asked, so you found out about the affair, right? And Erica was like, yes, I found out about it. And then they said, but you realized that after the unfortunate unaliving of Mr. Greg Rice, your husband kept Uchi that lady's coochie, right? You were aware? And she was like, yes. And they were like, right. And so you're still married to this Mama Luke today, right? And she was like, mm-hmm. And then the defense attorney asked a very strange question. They said, did you get a call saying that Greg was no more and that you didn't have to worry about him anymore? And Erica was like, what? No, that never happened. The face origami on Megan. You know how she do. Child and faces this heifer makes. Apparently, now this is the gospel according to Kathy. Megan lies every time she opened her mouth. This is what I think. It's just an opinion. And, you know, whatever disclaimers need to be inserted here for this unfortunate unaliver. So Megan probably told her lawyers, yeah, as soon as the deed was done and we unfortunately unalived this dude, Chris called up his wife and was like, hey, girl, hey, you're not going to have to worry about that Greg no more. And this is what Megan told her lawyers. So, of course, the lawyers asked Erica about it. Erica was like, that never happened. You know, them lawyers was like, why does heifer lie every time she opened her mouth? But I was just like, okay. And then their final question was, do you blame Chris or do you blame our sweet little client over there, who everybody knows is the town bicycle child, everybody getting a ride? And she was just like, oh no, I blame my husband, Chris. And I was like, okay, good for you. At least you're not just mad at the woman. Here's the thing that I noticed. The attorney, the defense attorney, that questioned Miss Erica never looked her in her face. Sir, shame? Is your shame finally showing up a little bit? He just kept looking at the jury, asking the jury questions, talking to the jury. He never looked Erica Dontell in her face. And I was just like, you don't deserve to look at her. She is a good woman who got betrayed. It is a shame before the Lord. Anyway, so then the solicitor stands up and redirects. And she's just like, did you leave Chris when this happened? And she was like, no. And the solicitor asked, did you leave him when he took the plea deal? She was like, no. They said, are you divorced now? She was like, no, I haven't had a chance to speak to my husband privately in 4 years, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay, on so many levels, I'm kind of blown away. Y'all, the quickness with which I would have divorced this Mama Luke. Oh, you do not even understand. But that's me. She's a nice lady down there in South Carolina. Me, I'm up here in the godless Northeast, honey. We might cut a Mama Luke. Now, not unto death, because I'm not out here trying to self-snitch. But what I'm saying is, if this happened at my house, it would not go good for my husband. I'm just letting you know. Then the state calls one Christopher Dontell. the assistant unfortunate unaliver. Now, it was at this point in the trial that I noticed a little something that I had not noticed before. You know, the cameras, they keep the camera on the defendant, trash bag Meagan Jackson, right? The lawyers from the Britton law firm, now there's water on the table, right? There's a pitcher of water and a cup, just like a plain black pitcher. You know, one of those that keeps the water cold. You know, it's probably tap water in there too. Ew. Anyway, they have some tap water over there. I think they're trying to poison the prisoner, and some like little paper cups. I would not blame the lawyers at all for just showing up with, like, you know, a Deer Spring, a Poland Spring, or whatever, their little water bottles. These smart lawyers are smart cookies. These defense attorneys, the Britton law firm, and I'm telling you their name over and over and over because I promise you, they want you to know their name. This entire trial is an advertisement for their law firm. If you ask me, hi, Britton law firm, please do not sue me. Anyway, the Britton law firm got a big old water bottle sitting right in front of their client with a big B on it. Like, oh, we are branding this trial as the Britton law firm trial. Look, game recognizes game. I'm not mad at y'all. Anyway, hang on. So the solicitor's office calls Chris Dontell, and he comes in. He's obviously in custody. He's doing the shackle shuffle. You know, his feet, he got the belly chains, his feet are chained, whatever. He toddles in, and they're like, sir, you're obviously in custody. He got the big XL on the back of his jumpsuit. Let me tell you something. Obviously, prison is not a nice place to be. Nobody wants to go to prison. The worst indignity of it all, they put your size on the outside of your clothes. It's bad enough the food is probably terrible. Your colleagues, the people that you live with, are probably not the best. Okay, the outfits are kind of ugly. They're boxy. You can't just like tailor them to fit your body. And then they put your size on the back of the shirt. Look, that alone is reason to never go to prison. I'd be like, can we just make this a small? I don't care what size it actually is. Can you just make it a small? Can I put an X beside an X? I'm extra small. I'm extra teensy and petite. Anyway. Lies I tell myself. Anyway, so Chris comes in with his shackle shuffle, right? And they were like, okay, so you're obviously in custody. He was like, yes, ma'am. And I was like, what are we gonna get from this, Mama Luke? Now, we know he is there to testify against his co-conspirator. He has already confessed to his part in this crime. So I just want to hear what he has to say. Now, the deal is he has to get up there and tell the truth, and then hopefully the state will give him a lighter sentence, because without him, they couldn't have put all the pieces together on this unfortunate unaliving. Yes, it's still a circumstantial case, but Chris is the one who tied it all up and put a pretty bow on it. So let me just measure this man's character. I was looking at him real hard and judging him quite harshly, I promise you, right? So they said, okay, so you get arrested pretty much immediately on the heels of this body being found, because if you recall, they had him on videotape in the Lowe's hardware, crystal clear surveillance video like nothing I've ever seen. Him pushing the cart with the murder kit in it, right? It had the tarp, it had the zip ties, it had the cinder block, it had the ratchet straps, all the things that you need from the Lowe's murder aisle, right? So he was just like, I was arrested right away because they had that crystal clear video, and I was out of custody for 10 months, but then I got rearrested. If bad decisions was a person, Lord, sir, you got rearrested for what? And he was just like, yeah, I was rearrested for having contact with my co-defendant. Let me tell you something. This lady, this Meagan Jackson, you in jail. Your family is looking at you crazy. Your kids are crying. Your business is gone. And you still gonna be in touch with her? What? You know what we know about this lady for sure? Her kitty is feral. I'm telling you right now, a regular woman could not command this kind of control. Sweet Polly purebred Erica down to the house was just trying to get him to unload the dishwasher. Meanwhile, he's risking going to prison for life for that heifer. Meagan, she does tricks. I'm telling you right now, she does a triple backflip. She sticks the landing every single time. She double jointed. She can double swallow. She got no gag reflex. I'm telling you right now, her kitty is feral. But anyway, so he was like, okay, yes, ultimately I took a plea deal and I pled to a laundry list of things. And I was like, well, tell me every single one of them. He was like, I pled to accessory after the fact. Okay. He pled to conspiracy. He pled open to the court, which means he's like, I'm going to tell you what I did. Please don't send me away for too long. I'm just going to tell you every single thing. And he is at the mercy of the solicitor's office. So now he got to be real nice and real kind to the solicitor. So the solicitor don't lock him up or recommend he be locked up forever, ever. He confessed to his guilt and he's hoping to get less time. Okay, that all makes sense. And then he was just like, the solicitor's like, why are you here today? He was like, he in the ugly cry now. I just want justice. I just want justice for the Rice family. Okay, sir, was the feral kitty worth it? Because now you done ruined your whole life, your family's life, these kids, everybody. And he was just like, yeah, I just really want justice. And then Savannah, you remember sweet little Savannah, the daughter of the trollop, she wept. Oh, this sweet Savannah. Savannah has won my heart. I kind of want to pay for her college. Okay, not really, because I'm trying to pay for my kids' college, but I'm like, oh, my heart goes out to Miss Savannah. And so they were like, okay, Chris, now, why did you do all these things? He was like, I was scared. Have you seen her? She's tiny, but she's scary. She threatened to unfortunately unalive me. And they were like, right, but why were you that afraid? He was like, I saw her pew up her baby daddy, and she acted like it was no big deal. She was super-de-duper nonchalant. Remember how Lori Vallow Daybell was like, I am calm and cool and collected. I was nonchalant. This heifer, this unfortunate unaliver, very, very, very nonchalant on the heels of the unfortunate unalivement. So he tells the whole story. I met Meagan back in 2018, right? We worked together. I was driving dead body Uber. She was driving dead body Uber. And then I trained her, and then I became the assistant coroner. And me and her got to be friends, right? And I was like, okay, cool. And he said a thing that I was like, sir, this is when you should have been suspicious. He said, she volunteered to help me move. That is the most suspicious thing I ever heard in my life. Let me tell you something. Nobody wants to help you move. Nobody. Not your mama, not your cousins. Nobody wants to help you move. Hire a mover or move yourself. Get your kids to do it. Nobody wants to help you move. Not for all the beer, not for all the pizza in the world. We got bad backs. We got, no. So she volunteered to help him move. I would have been like, no, heifer, put my boxes down. I don't care if it says dishes, leave it alone. Anyway, so he was like, she volunteered and she helped us move. Suspicious. And he was just like, we were just friends at first, but she kept trying to seduce me. And ultimately, I just have to blame it on the alcohol, because see, one night we was out and she just kept sitting on me. And then one night her kitty bit me and I couldn't, and it wouldn't let go. And so I just had to go with it until, I was finished. And I was just like, oh my God. Anyway, Chris goes on to explain that he never met Greg Rice in life. The decedent, the man they unfortunately unalive, never met the dude. That's crazy to me. And so the solicitor asked, well, what did you know about Greg Rice? And he was like, the only things I knew about Greg Rice were the things the trash bag told. I'm sorry, I keep using, I need to use her government name because that would be polite. Over here we keep our pinkies out, right? He was just like, I never met her, but the kids talked about him so lovingly. His kids talk about him the way I would want to be talked about. Yes, they knew he was a flawed man. Yes, he had affairs and he drank too much and smoked weed and whatever. Child, that is what the trash bag said. That is what Meagan said. We don't even know if that's true. He was a flawed man. He was in a bad relationship, but his children loved him a real lot. Then, Chris, who is terrible, by the way. Don't get it twisted. I'm not having a whole bunch of sympathy for Chris Dontell, whatever his name is, in this situation. But he's also terrible. He was like, yes, I had an affair. Then my wife, Erica, started getting these texts and stuff. Erica confronts us. I deny it, of course, because that's what you do. You lie. And then Meagan started saying, this is the baby daddy. And then Meagan was like, I'm going to pay for a trip for us to go to Florida together. You see, Chris, with his cleaning business, at one point had to go to Florida to look at some gas stations to do something business related. And Meagan was like, oh, can I go too? So she paid for the whole trip. Meagan, girl, you trying too hard. You are trying. You don't have to try this hard to get a man, especially considering some of the skills that you got. You don't, leave this married man alone. But she ain't know nothing about that. Also, she's crazy. Anyway, so while they're on the trip in Florida, P.S., Erica, Chris's wife, she don't know he's in Florida with this heifer. I was like, oh. So he just taking secret trips with the trollop and her kids down to Florida, calling it a business trip. Okay, sure. Now, while they're on this trip, Chris is like, wait. I mean, I knew her kitty was feral and stuff, but I didn't know she knew all kinds of crazy magic technical tricks. Apparently, Meagan had cloned her baby daddy's phone, so when he was on the phone, she could look on her phone and see everything he was doing. Oh, she got tech skills too. Oh, she gonna do fine in prison. She got a skill already. She gonna teach stuff. And so then Chris recounts for us the day of the crime. What he says is they're in the car together. They driving around. She had just finished servicing him. And then he was just like, hey, let's get in the car. And Meagan is like, yeah, let's go over here. I got to talk to my baby daddy for a minute, right? So Chris pulls the car up. Meagan lures Greg out of the house a little distance away from where he's living. They pull the van up. Meagan jumps out of the van, pew, 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 pews up her baby daddy. He falls on the floor, and then she starts screaming at him, pick him up. You know how to carry a dead body. After all, we're dead body Uber. And so they scoop him up. They put him in the back of the van. They both remove the body. That's just what they do. That's their whole job. They get back in the van, and he said Meagan was real nonchalant. Though I would have been so chalant in that situation, screaming, waving, freaking all the way out. All the way. I broke out nearly just hearing about it. Anyway, so after it's all said and done, Chris is like, he's in shock. He's like, hands at 10 and 2, eyes bugged out. And he's like to the trollop, why did you do that? And she was just like, I mean, can we not talk about this? Ma'am, that's not how this is supposed to go. But also you, unfortunately, unaliving others, that's not supposed to go like that either. So she's not real good on societal rules. So, okay, that tracks. And then Meagan proceeds to berate Chris. Don't be a wimp. Drive better. Put your hands at 10 and 2. Don't worry about the body in the back. Okay, so he follows Crazy's directions, drives the body to the funeral home, puts it in the cooler or whatever. And then they go back to Megan's house. And so Megan is just like, okay, I need to take a shower because all this unfortunate unaliving, it has me overheated. I'm a little bit hot. And so she goes to take a shower. And he said, after the unfortunate unaliving, Megan says to Chris, well, now you can never leave me. We're in this together. And he's like, okay. I just saw her take somebody off this whole mortal coil, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought this feral kitty was going to be worth it. It clearly is very, very not. And so Chris on the stand is telling this story. I am mesmerized. Megan is sitting there with her eyes bugged out like she never heard this story before. Heifer, we know you know this story because we know you was there. And then Chris does something I did not expect. He said, we go back to Megan's house. Megan's taking a shower. I'm sitting on the couch trying to make small talk with her daughter, Savannah. And then he looks up and he says, I'm sorry, Savannah. Y'all, a nation wept. Okay, Savannah wept. I might have shed a tear too. Poor little Savannah. Why are y'all doing this to Savannah? Justice for Savannah and the whole Rice family. It was terrible. And then Megan was like, okay, I'm all fresh from a shower. All right. So listen, Chris, come here. Can I talk to you over here? And he was like, yes, mistress. And she was like, yeah, you know what you need to do. You got to dispose of that body and stuff, right? And he was like, see, why don't you just get it cremated? And she was like, no, get rid of it. So that's where he went. I guess it was the next day he went and he got all the zip ties and, that murder kit down into the Lowe's on the crystal clear video. And then that night, the night after the unfortunate unaliving, there's a death call. He goes out, finds a piece of land or whatever, way out in the country. Child, this is South Carolina. In my mind, it's just all open roads and creeks and rivers and frogs and stuff, right? So he finds a spot that he thinks is a good spot, jumps out of the car, dumps the body over, jumps back in the car and keeps it moving. South Carolina, y'all just out here dumping bodies willy-nilly. I mean, I guess the regular law-abiding citizens, not so much, but y'all criminals got a lot of room to do all kinds of nefarious stuff. Please hold. So when he comes back from dumping the body, Megan is like, did you do what you needed to do? And he was like, yeah, I took care of it. And she says, good boy. Like he's a pet. So the state is like, why did you confess? And he was like, okay, so look, but as soon as I met with my lawyers, I told my lawyers everything. And I was like, this heifer's dangerous. She's going to do terrible things to my family. I'll confess, but you got to keep my family safe first. And once my family is safe, I'm going to tell everything. then the solicitor sits down. And I was like, now we about to get a cross-examination. Now listen, the Britton law firm, bless their hearts, sitting up there with the big cup with the B on it. They're like, we are the Britton law firm. Please don't forget us for all your murder needs, right? The main lawyer, Tommy Britton, gets up to cross-examine this witness. Now, South Carolina, y'all know I love y'all like cook food, but I got a question. I was not aware until the Murdaugh trial, like during the Alex Murdaugh trial, we saw his lead attorney, Dick Harpootlian, right? Dick Harpootlian, oh, he got on my nerves during that trial. But one thing I did notice, Dick Harpootlian was like a big personality, a big heavyset man with white hair who peaked many, many years ago, but he don't know he's past his prime. And he stands up there and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, you could tell he's used to ruling the courtroom back in the day. Not now, back in the day. I thought that was just a Dick Harpootlian thing. What I failed to realize is that y'all got a bunch of Harpootlians roaming around down there. So when this Tommy Britton stood up, I was like, Poot, is that you? Oh, honey. This Tommy Britton, he's a Harpootlian if you've ever seen a Harpootlian. If you don't watch any other part of this trial, go back and watch Tommy Britton's cross-examination of Chris Dontell. I believe it's on like day 3 or day 4 of this trial. Honey, we have seen a Poot in the wild. This Poot got up here and he stalked the courtroom. He preached sermons. He bloviates. He gets lost in his questions. He gets lost in the courtroom. He fumbles. He testifies. He asks confusing questions and he breaks all the rules. I was like, go, Poot, go. Your client is going down. You really can't touch anything in this man's story. But I love to see a Poot in the wild, although it is aggravating. Since you already know this whole trash bag gonna lose this case, this wild Poot, Tommy Britton, was just like, look, we know this heifer did it. This is just an ad for the Britton law firm, find us in Myrtle Beach, you know, with his cup with the big B on it. So he just asked some real random questions and I could just sit back and relax and enjoy myself because I knew this heifer was going down. Anyway, not to have, no spoiler alerts, but it's pretty clear what's going to happen here. Anyway, so wild Poot, Tommy Britton gets up and he was like, sir, I was like, oh, here we go. Go on, Foghorn Leghorn, tell us what you got to say. And he was just like, were you married? And Chris Dantel says, yes. He's like, did you take vows to your wife? And he was just like, yes. And then he asked him the following questions, all of which Chris was like, yeah, I said that when the other lady asked me. He was like, did you have numerous affairs? Did you betray your wife? Did you commit adultery? Did you lie to the police? Did you use condoms? Sir, we don't. We don't want to know all the dirt. Clearly the girl got pregnant. He wasn't using condoms. He's like, were you using condoms with this woman? Were you afraid of her? She's a little thing. Why would you be afraid of her? And then Chris is like, I saw her unfortunately unalive her baby daddy. Like pew pew, just shot the man right up. And so this wild Poot, Tommy Britton was like, and you didn't report it to the police? I was like, sir, you are a gem. You are a cartoon, but you are a gem. I loved it so much. Also, Britton brothers, psst, come here. Listen, I know y'all don't know me, and I don't know you at all. But just looking at you, something tells me both of y'all got first names that are probably also last names. I'm just guessing because I know the type, right? So, and they got a sister too, right? I bet she got a pure, sweet name. There's 2 names, Mary Sue, Mary Jane, something like that. Anyway, brothers, y'all need to let him retire because this is not a good look for y'all. This was probably real cool in like 68 or something like that. But right now in 2025, Ixnay, y'all looking like a cartoon. Although I'm not mad at the big B on the water bottle. I appreciate the product placement. Anyway, so Chris is up here on the stand. He's unflappable. He just told his story. And periodically and from time to time, as this wild Poot walks around the courtroom and bloviates, Chris was like, was there a question? He was lodging his own objections. He was like, sir, asked and answered. I was like, oh my God. And then Tommy Britton was like, did you have an affair? I was like, Didn't we cover that? Objection. I'm sitting there at my desk watching this, like, ask and answer. Sir, can you move this along? He was like, during that affair, did she get pregnant? Did y'all have sexual relations? I was like, okay. Then he asked one question that I found to be very curious. He said, you got this lady pregnant. And then Chris said, well, I never was sure it was my baby. That is the only time in this whole trial when Meagan looked upset. She was like, what? Yes, I was dropping it low and spreading it wide to everybody in town, and I unfortunately unalived that dude. But how dare you think that this was not your baby? P.S. I don't even think she was really pregnant. But that's just me, because these kind of heifers, they lie about stuff like that. Anyway, so he was just like, look, I said what I said. But the wild poot was not deterred. He was like, didn't you try to get her to having a bobo? I mean, that's not the words he used. That's my YouTube-friendly version of it. And he was like, yes, well, we did agree that she should terminate the pregnancy. He was like, but you didn't use a condom and you wanted her to having a bobo. I think he was just trying to use all the words that might inflame this jury and detract from the fact that his client is clearly very, very, very guilty, and the state of South Carolina had this heifer to rights. So he marched and stomped, and he kept trying to impeach the witness. He asked him 25,000 times, did he have an affair? Finally, the witness, Chris, was like, asked and answered. Why are we still asking these same questions? And I was like, Sir, please sit down, but please keep talking. I'm loving this so much. And then finally he was like, there was another body at the funeral home that went missing. Do you know anything about that? Now, at this point, Meagan smiles. Girl, what you smiling about? You're on trial for your life. And she's like, man, You know the camera's on you, right? We can see the big B on the water bottle. Don't forget Britain Law for all of your friendly legal needs in Myrtle Beach. Ma'am, the camera's on you. Stop smiling. And then finally, this wild poot has tired himself out. I think he needs a nap. He gonna need a glass of whiskey or something like that. He gonna have to go down to Big Mama's house and sit on the front porch and rock in a chair for a while because he has worn himself out. And Case and his brother and them, they're gonna be like, okay, daddy, you did a good job. Anyway, so then finally, the very classy solicitor stands up and she was just like, okay. Now that this fool is done bloviating in the courtroom, I just have a couple questions for you. Mr. Britton referenced the 10 Commandments. Oh, yeah, he referenced the 10 Commandments a couple of times. When you put your hand on that Bible, sir, he's involved in an unfortunate unaliving. You think he's real concerned about the Bible and condoms and stuff like that? I promise you, he's not. Anyway, she was like, the solicitor stands up. She's like, yeah, Poot asked you about the 10 Commandments. Don't the 10 Commandments say don't commit adultery? And he was like, yeah, but I was involved in killing a dude, so I really wasn't worried about Uchi and that lady's coochie. And then he was just like, right, don't the 10 Commandments also say do not kill? And Chris was like, yes. Then the solicitor is like, didn't Meagan, that whole trash bag over there, unfortunately unalive somebody? And Chris was like, I mean, in like judicial language. And so then they wrapped up for the day. Y'all, it was the best day in court I have honestly ever seen. I might go play it back again because I enjoyed it so much. Tomorrow, we will finish up this case. I've already talked for too long. Y'all know she's loquacious. Anyway, so tomorrow, you'll get the end to this little story of the state of South Carolina versus trash bag Meagan Jackson. In the meantime, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share these videos, and I will see you next crime. Bye.